I waited for like the perfect moment in the studio where I was like, I've got a song, and I just played it and got to the end and was like, and Ben was actually the other side of the piano and just stuck his head up and he was like, dude, that's amazing. I was like, yeah? And he was like, yeah. He was like, record it now. And his head went back down again. So I was like, okay, let's go. Trouble's Coming was our eureka moment. It was the golden ticket to the rest of our album. It only existed as music for a very long time. It didn't have any vocals. But it was a bunch of riffs that went together really well, and we felt had this like dance, kind of heavy-handed Bee Gees. It was like a heavy version of the Bee Gees to us. It was like disco, but it was also very alpha, you know. It was like a pro wrestler trying to toss a salad. We walked away with this music for it, and it took a long time to get the vocal to work over it. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to say, and then the thing that sparked it off was I was on a conversation with a friend, and we were kind of having a sort of joking conversation about giving yourself this rough talk in the mirror, like these sort of get your shit together kind of talks in the mirror. And one of the things I put on my message was, I gave my knuckles a run for their money, and we both started laughing, and then I was like, that's the greatest opening line to the song. And from then I kind of knew where I was going to go with it. But yeah, this kind of set the tone for the rest of the record, and it opened our world to this idea of royal blood being in colour. Oblivion was right at the end of the process. I think at the time of writing, we felt like we had our album complete. So it was, to us, it was this bonus jam we had going on. But the more and more we developed it, we realised it was turning into this, yeah, almost like the missing piece of the puzzle, really, because it had a very danceable aspect to it, but there was something very reminiscent of where we began as a band as well. It was very simple, and it was also, I think we really enjoyed like how brutal the arrangement was. Like nothing hangs around. Like the minute you even think you're going to get bored of hearing something, it changes, and it's all over very quickly.
Bit like our attention span.
It is. That,
isn't it?
Oblivion is what our attention span sounds like. Typhoons was a joy to make. It kind of just came out of nowhere, really. It was like we got struck by lightning. I think at this point of the process it's like we knew the language of our own record, and we knew aesthetically what we were making, and it was like very groove orientated, and it was very, very fast to write. I think it took us like 3 or 4 days, and by the time we got to the end, we were like, okay, the demo's done. Demo sounds great, but maybe we shouldn't really touch it, and we just really left it how it was. I feel like once we had established like where we were going with this album and what we were trying to say and how we wanted to do it, it felt like every song attempt is like bowls, and you're trying to get closer and closer to the target. And I think when we wrote Typhoons, it was like a bullseye moment for the record. I felt like lyrically I had hit the nail on the head with what I've been trying to say, and I think the vibe of it was just so fun and so colourful as well. It felt like rainbows were coming out of the speakers. I think the backdrop of a lot of these songs, and Typhoons in particular, was their music was so euphoric and danceable and fun. It almost gave me more of a license to be more vulnerable and more confidence to be more revealing, because it felt like there was something protecting me, and something you wouldn't necessarily hear straight off the bat. It's an odd counterpoint on paper, because usually songs of that nature are usually singing about, I don't know, dancing or having fun, whereas it's like at face value that song's like pretty feel good until you really listen to what is being said, and it's like, Jesus. And this was one that was started by Benjamin, and his offering was those like the 2 rhythms of the verse. I don't know, what do you call it? polyrhythm, is that what it's called? It's two things that rhythmically don't match up.
I should know.
I don't know what it's called, but he had the and I was just like, that's so. It was so hypnotizing in a Zeppelin way, but also sounded so modern. And I think in moments like that, I always am very careful about what I'm going to do. So instead of really adding anything, I just picked one note. Because we love the idea of just playing that intro over and over again without me saying anything. But obviously at some point we had to turn it into a song. I think the first thing that came out at the end, I was almost like a come together. I'll turn around. And I think I just came out there and I was like, who needs friends? And that song's really about, the kind of how you can isolate yourself through paranoia and how you can. For me, I came to a point in my life where I didn't trust anyone and I was cutting everyone out. And at one point in my life, I really, that even extended to my friends where I didn't want anyone and I didn't trust anyone. Also, as soon as I sang it, Ben started laughing and I was like, it's a good sign. We're always trying to make each other laugh.
What tickled you?
Just the line, who needs friends? It was like, is that a question or is that a statement? And I've decided it's a statement.
It's it's good when it's a punchline that's funny without a lead up.
It's the one I reckon that is the most produced.
Yeah, it's the most like studio record we've made.
And probably the widest we've gone sonically with a tune. We've got like an arpeggio going through that and
it's like synths and stuff, isn't it?
Synth vocoder bit at the end. So it was the one where we're really searching for, where we could go and how far we could go with this album with those kind of sounds.
I think the meaning of the song became clear for us when I think we realised it was like the first love song we'd ever had, and for me that's quite a vulnerable thing to do. It's the first time I've done that. But again, I think the backdrop to the music I was so confident in, it allowed me to like take that step forwards and be a little bit more, revealing. Limbo was written during the first lockdown in England, and the song started at home just on a laptop, and I started making it just out of boredom, like everyone else was bored in that time. I ended up, after 2 weeks, going into our studio where we work out of and developing this idea, and I think because I didn't have the band in mind, it allowed me to kind of push the boundaries a lot more. And the song's a good example where those limitations disappeared and it was like, well, what do we sound like when we don't hold ourselves back in any way and don't censor ourselves? And before we knew it, it became this epic tune on the record. It's like 5 minutes long and it goes on such a journey. And I think the monotony of lockdown and also what it's saying about, the monotony of like destructive behaviour as well, that it was almost like I was singing about about those two things like simultaneously. And I think like from a drum perspective as well, it was like the first tune in the process where Ben probably went heavier than he's ever gone before in terms of a drum part. And it created this really cool contrast between the chorus and the verses. In the verses it felt like we were in the Mars Volta. There was something as well about the drive from the studio to my house where every time I'd leave, the sun would be setting, and I'd listen to this demo. I just went over, and I think it had like a big part in the way that sounds as well. Either You Want It is an interesting one. This is a song that we composed around the piano based on this drum beat that kind of sounded like what's that track? It was like New York, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah.
Ben had this idea for this drum beat. It was almost like music, like the full Monty or something.
Yeah.
It was very
three, four.
Yeah. So it was almost like this Motowny, like slow thing. And again, like we weren't like this is going on the record. We were just kind of just messing about. And we had the basic structure of the song, but it was all around the piano and it was all really slow. And on another writing session, we started playing around with the riff that's in the song now. And suddenly I realised I was like subconsciously drawing from this other song we had written, which was like 3 times the speed, higher, and it was like this song was sleeping.
It's always fun writing in that time signature as well.
Yeah.
Riffs sound massive in it, don't they? And it's just it's fun to play along with.
It's got a good feel to it, yeah. Boilermaker went on the longest journey out of any other song on the record. It started off in a friend's bedroom, mate of mine called Tommy Hill. He's a really good mate of both of us actually, and he had this initial like feel for a drum groove on a track he was working on, and he played it to me, and I was like, is there any way I could just steal the drum beat? Because I think that's got something really cool to it. And eventually I convinced him. He was like, oh, go on then. So we started working on this thing together, and I was like, yes, I've got this. Because to me, I'd never heard a song with that beat on it since The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and it just had exactly the same swing to it, and I was like, why has no one done this? But that was like enough for me to be excited about, and I showed it to Ben, and then as soon as Ben started playing it for real, it was turning into this like bully of a song. So we had this really like sophisticated sounding demo, and having toured extensively with Queens of the Stone Age and become like really good friends with everyone, and including the Desert Sessions, which I was lucky enough to go and feature on. Working with Josh Homme just seemed like, it was, looking back, it was just very natural progression. Yeah, so Josh Homme produced this track, and it was just an amazing experience. He's someone we've always wanted to work with, and I think it was the perfect song. We had these pieces to the puzzle that we were so excited about, but we really didn't know how to put them together. And he really helped us with the arrangement of this song. And when he first suggested how he saw it going together, we were like, what? And it just seemed so backwards and sporadic. And yeah, it was a real moment capturing that song together. I remember when the drum sound first got pulled up on the desk and Ben was playing, and me and Josh just looked at each other and just hugged. We were like, so, and it's funny, you know, there was a long gap between making that song and Troubles Coming, where like my life obviously like changed quite a lot, but this song just, it lived on the record so effortlessly. Boilermaker lyrically is kinds of the shameful things that you want to forget in the morning, and about things you said. A Boilermaker is a disgusting drink. I think it's whiskey and beer together. And I think, yeah, there's many nights where I've had empty Boilermakers and woken up in the morning and thought, and thinking of the kind of arrogant and gross things that were said by everyone. It's not to be literal about it, but it was like, there was a point in my life where I did feel like I had a head like a cocktail shaker.
I don't wanna change. I don't know how. Make the same mistakes. Bring myself out.
Started as an instrumental with just you
Singing Mad Visions for like
yeah
4 weeks over the same bit of music.
and it just, for me, when Mike played it, the groove was just wicked, and then it kind of builds up like a dance track, and when the chorus dropped, yeah, it felt like a dance track. It felt like Dua Lipa could be singing over it, kind of thing.
I think it was the most testing song in the process. We were like, well, we were listening back and we were like, wow, we really are doing what we want to do on this record, because it doesn't adhere to anything we've done before. And I would say a purist rock fan or someone that is strictly listening to rock, I was like, they're gonna fucking hate this.
Yeah.
I think it's the first time I've written a song for someone else who was going through a really difficult time. Like most of our songs, it started with the main riff, and I think it's the first time I've like stumbled across a riff that felt really positive and it felt really euphoric. Yeah, suddenly I felt like, oh, this feels good, and it feels like an uplifting song, and I don't think we have anything like that. Then like the message of like yeah, like being there for someone and letting them know that they're not alone. Yeah, we love playing it live. Also, the initial name for it was like Zeppelin riff over disco beat, just because I think the when it hit like the verse, I felt like I was at least pretending to be Jimmy Page in like a disco band. What we have now is performed by a man called Jerry, and he's actually the secret third member of the band.
He hated the song
He
as well.
hated it at first, but he did a great job.
Yeah. Then we had to re-record it though.
We had to re-record it, yeah.
And you did it, didn't you? You did the piano.
So all we have is now was a song that I had in my back pocket, but it certainly didn't belong on a Raw Blood album. I was almost like a little bit embarrassed to like play it to anyone. I was like, is this, because it was just felt, I'm like hiding behind nothing. It's just me and the piano. And I waited for like the perfect moment in the studio where I was like, I've got a song, and I just played it and got to the end and was like, and Ben was actually the other side of the piano and just stuck his head up and he was like, dude, that's amazing. I was like, yeah, and he was like, yeah. He was like, record it now. And his head went back down again. So I was like, okay, let's go. So we just literally there and then recorded it, and we didn't even mix it. We just were like, cool, and rapped on it. And when it got to the end of the process from putting the album together, Ben was like, that song has to go on the album. It won't be heard if we don't put it out. And I think we've always wanted to have a track like that on one of our records, but I don't feel like we ever had the right song. And yeah, it just felt like the best way to wrap up the end of the party, you know, and yeah, like lift up the mask for a minute.